to the seat. And then as you exhale from the seat, let's let our chin fall to our sternum. And as the chin tucks into the sternum, think about the flexion going on in the cervical spine. Roll the palms up and retract the scapula towards the back of your room. And thinking about just nuzzling the chin into the sternum here. Feeling how the flexion is impacting the vertebrae in the cervical spine. And then imagine or feel the chin pulling up towards the cervical spine. And note how that impacts that subscapular musculature, the high posterior chain musculature. And then relax your way back to neutral. Head lifts, spine lifts, breath full. As you exhale, let's slowly turn our chin towards the right. And then using an exhale again, let's come back to center. Settle into the breath. And then we'll slowly utilize an exhale to turn towards the left. And utilizing an exhale again, we'll return to center. Take your left hand palm down on top of the right thigh. And let's place the right hand on top of that left hand. So the hands are stacked on the right thigh. So we have a little bit of a torso rotation likely already started. We're going to accentuate that with an exhale, turning the torso and head towards the right. And then inhale back to what is neutral-esque with this kind of starting rotation center. And then exhale to the right once again. And inhale back to what is our new neutral. And one more time, let's exhale, twisting to the right. And then relax all the way back to neutral and walk yourself out into a little seated fold. Arms can be kickstands here, hands can be kickstands. You can go to the forehead. We just want to connect and impact the lumbar spine here. And so there's this fire that was started in the center of town. No one seems to know who built it. No one seems to know who set it ablaze. But it's perfect. When it feels appropriate, let's walk our torso back up to vertical. And we'll take the right hand on top of the left thigh. The left hand's going to come on top of that. So we start out with this little bit of a hinge towards rotation. As you exhale, we'll turn towards the left. And we'll inhale back to neutral or modified neutral. Exhale back to the left. Inhale back to this neutral or modified neutral. And one more time, let's exhale to the left. And we'll come back to full neutral and walk ourselves out into another seated forward fold, just a little balancing. Note if there's more space, note if there's less space. Note if we're back in the exact same position we had just visited. And we'll give ourselves just 30 more seconds here just to settle in. Make sure you're fully feeling the impact of the inhale and the release into the exhale. Maybe one more full inhale breath and a full exhale breath. Before we walk our way back up to a neutral spine. Settle into your seat with this spinal column stack. And let's just take a couple of cycles of breath here. Maybe the eyes closed, maybe they don't, but we fully feel our inhale and exhale. And it feels like you're complete. Let's extend our legs out in front of us for a little staff. And from staff, let's just follow the feet into a fold. At first, just the village elders would come and they would admire this fire. This fire that provided warmth, but never burned. It provided light, but never harsh shadows. And so the village elders would come and they would just sit and stare into this fire for hours in silence. Give ourselves 30 more seconds here. Maybe one last final breath, big full inhale, full releasing exhale before we bring ourselves back up to vertical. And here, let's make sure we have our ball handy and let's grab our blanket or towel. We're going to take that to a towel length and then roll that. And let's take that roll and place it behind us, running the length of the spinal column. And then lowering yourself down onto this roll that defines the two halves of the body. The sacrum anchored against the mat. And from the sacrum up, we're elevated by this blanket roll. If it feels like it's too much or it feels like it's off center, make sure you tweak and adjust so that you feel supported. All of the elders sitting and watching this fire started to bring more attention to this fire. This was in the southern hemisphere, so July was the middle of winter. People having a place to gather where they were warm, where they were well lit, where they could experience joy. It was quite the spectacle. After the elders came their children, and with them they brought their children. And soon around this fire, generations had gathered. They watched the flames flicker. They watched the children dance in this warm light. In the silence that the elders had brought to the fire disappeared into sounds of joyous laughter and play. There was something strange about this fire, though. And it wasn't just that no one knows who started it. It was that this fire produced no smoke. Think about relaxing to the corners of your shoulders and the corners of your hips. Think about relaxing to those lateral edges so this apex of curvature at the medial line can be pulled and expanded towards the edges. And think about how your breath is interacting with the apex with the expansion of this curvature of your body. Let's give ourselves 60 more seconds here. Just feeling that inhale to apex and exhale to that lateral edge melting. It when it feels appropriate, we'll bend our knees if they're not already. And we'll just roll our way off of this prop, pulling that out from underneath us, keeping it handy, and then pulling the thighs in towards the torso for a little neutral expansion of the spine. And then release the feet back to the mat. Let the kneecaps point towards the ceiling and just pause here for a moment. Feeling the neutral torso against the mat. And when you're ready, grab this blanket roll. And we're going to pull the thighs in towards the torso again and just lay that blanket roll across the ankles. Keep your hands on either edge or both edges as you release the feet down to the mat. Let the bottoms of the feet come together and let the knees fall out wide, supported by the blanket roll. And settle into this relaxed torso musculature. Feel the openness and that external rotation of the hips. Settle your way back into your breath. And whispers started to spread through this town, particularly when everyone was gathered around the fire. Whispers of how unusual it was that there was no smoke. People started to question the origins of fire. One evening, someone took a clump of wet leaves, tossed them into the center of the flames. And still there was no smoke, which led more people to question the fire, the validity of the fire itself, the origin of the fire. Or to find that delicate balance between full, impactful breath and the softness and fluidity possible within your breath. Almost as if there is a rolling expansion and a rolling contraction. Waves that rise and waves that fall, but never break within your body, within your breath. Slowness and ease. Big, fluid, full cyclings of breath. And give ourselves 60 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate for you, we'll bring our knees back up to neutral. Pull that blanket off the feet. You can set that to the side for now. Let's engage our ball. We're going to look for the soft spot just to the outside edge of the scapula and below the shoulder connection. So we're looking for a little lateral edge space. And let's start on the left side. We'll just let that ball tuck underneath that area, just at the outer edge of the scapula. We'll be able to keep the ball there because we're going to let the arm go to cactus. I mean, I guess that depends on the texture of your ball, but I have a relatively slippery lacrosse ball. So if we should be able to keep the ball there. If it's not staying there, and you're just getting the ball pushing out to the lateral edge, you can go to the inner edge. Um, you get some different expansion, but we're working on this anterior shoulder capsule here, along with that backside posterior pressure. The arm can be full cactus. That may not be possible with the placement of the shoulder capsule. So allow your arm to adjust towards what feels appropriate. Let's keep the knees bent if that feels comfortable for you, just so we can have the lumbar be nice and neutral. And then we're just going to start in on some fluid, full cycles of breath before we add some movement. Delicate, subtle movement, but just a little bit of movement. Once you feel like you've captured that cycle of breath and it's built into your posture here, let's start just rotating the hand. So it doesn't matter where we are in terms of our cactus. Just start rotating to the pinky edge and then to the thumb edge. Pinky edge and thumb edge. Can be nice and slow. We're just looking to move the kind of radial end into the humerus subtly. There's a very small amount of movement up around the humeral head. We want to just play a little bit with that shoulder musculature and this anterior capsule stability. very easy to have lost that fluidity in the breath. So maybe check back in on that. We want to make sure that it is easy and fluid. Weeks later, someone brought a small chunk of tire down to the fire. And as everyone looked on, they threw this chunk of tire into the fire. And collectively, everyone stopped. Everyone paused. Everyone might have even collectively held their breath, waiting to see this black smoke rise. But it didn't. There was no smoke at all. And this murmur of disbelief rushed through the village. The villagers gathered around this fire. Bring the arm or wrist rotation, hand rotation back to stillness. Find a static hold, and let's just give ourselves 60 seconds to just breathe into this adjustment. It feels appropriate for you. Let's remove that ball from underneath the left shoulder and just let both arms fall to cactus. Feel into that left right asymmetry, the openness on the left side of the shoulder girdle. And then let's look for the same mirroring side or mirroring placement on the other side. The ball find its match on side two, settle in, and then refine the fluidity in your breath. And then once you find that fluidity, we can start to rotate to the pinky edge and the thumb edge of your hand slowly and with your breath. Rumors started to spread through the little village about this fire. Primary rumor was that it couldn't possibly be real. No fire could burn wet leaves, let alone hire rubber without producing smoke. Check back in and make sure that the fluidity and depth of your breath is benefiting and optimizing your shape here. Eventually, we'll let the rotation in the hand pause and let your arm just find a static shape for 60 seconds to just release into this anterior shoulder capsule. When it feels appropriate, let's take that ball out from underneath you. You can set that to the side and just let your shoulders relax for a moment. Feel the space that you've created across the shoulder girdle. And then let's allow the knees to start to rotate. Delicate, subtle rotation, but rotation. Exploring the potential and rotational capacity of the hips and lumbar spine. Maybe one more time in each direction. And then we'll let the knees settle over to the left for a little static twist. It will not be a long hold here, but just enough to settle into. When it feels appropriate, we'll bring our knees back to neutral. And then let the knees fall over to the second side. When it feels appropriate, you can bring your knees back to neutral. And as the knees come back to neutral, ask yourself if there's anything that you might want, need, or that you could benefit from prior to Shavasana. If there is, let's offer that to ourselves now. Just find our version of stillness. The night after the rubber, everyone decided they would bring their trash. And one by one, they threw bag after bag of rubbish into this fire. The fire flickered and coughed and dimmed, and a curl of gray smoke rose in the center. And as the moon started to rise over the village, the fire went out, and the smell of burning rubbish wafted through every corner, just releasing fully into your stillness. The next morning with the smell of burning rubbish creeping into every corner of the village. Someone lit the fire again. It smoked heavily, and it burned the eyes of anyone who got near it. A crowd of people walked by and said, "See, now that's real." Someone nodded and said, "Yes, this is better." And they never spoke of the first fire again. Let's start to bring some movement into our fingers and our toes, into our wrists and our ankles, our elbows and our knees, shoulders, hips, neck, head, jaw, his tongue. Eventually, the entirety of the body moves, and we'll utilize that movement to transition into a seat. On the seated space, we'll let our spine get tall, let our breath get fluid, and let our eyes close. And with your next inhale, let's bring your hands together at heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself that truth never requires our permission? And that's what makes it true. And see how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this morning's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Sunday, guys. Appreciate the heck out of you being here. Love the heck out of you. I'll be back tomorrow night so we can move. Have a beautiful rest of your day. If I see you tomorrow, have a beautiful week. If I see you next week,